This is how to not suck at pitching your startup. It's a presentation, a workshop very near and dear to my heart. As Julie mentioned, I run the Chicago chapter of Startup Grind. I also run a company called Startup Hypeman. We'll get a little bit more into my background in just a minute, but today's content, what we're going to cover over the next hour, is very, very much focused on your elevator pitch. The thing about, like, what do you say when someone asks you, what does your company do? Right? Or what do you do? How do you respond to that question? It can be really challenging. So we're going to cover how you deliver a very compelling, crisp 1 minute story in responding to that, so you can open up more opportunities for yourself. What we don't have time to get into today is like pitch deck material. But what I've got for you at the end of this, I'm going to give you a link where you can, if you fill out the form, you'll be able to receive what I call the director's cut version of this workshop. So it's a pre-recorded version that covers everything we've got today, plus an extra 10, 15-ish minutes specifically on advanced pitch deck strategies, if that's of interest to you. I'll give you the info to grab that. There's also a way, if you stick around for this to the end, I'll show you a way, if you're interested in working with us at some point or soon, I'll show you how you'd be able to get $1,000 off our services. All right, let's go ahead. How to not suck at pitching your startup. You walked into a workshop today, but you may not have realized you walked into a live interactive game show called Pitch Your Startup. Woo, 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 woo. Burr, 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 burr. That's right. It's Pitch Your Startup, the only live interactive game show where a room of entrepreneurs are pit in front of their peers, where they have none other than, you guessed it, pitch their startup. So what I would like is one lucky volunteer who's going to come on down. I'm going to put 60 seconds on the clock, and your job is to pitch me. Who would like to be our volunteer?
I'll go ahead.
All right, Kristen Wager. Everybody give her a round of applause. Woo, Kristen. All right, Kristen, let me get my fancy watch here set up. You have 60 seconds when I say go. Ready, set, go.
So I'm a full service research agency that works with creators and creator brands. We focus primarily on content strategy and brand perceptions. We work with real-time audiences to get real-time feedback. And we help through using data to uh, create more meaningful experiences for audiences and deepen the creators' relationships with their audiences. Right now, I'm actually working on a creator impact score, which actually levels up their metrics. Instead of using engagement metrics, we actually use real-time influence to gauge a creator's overall influence for them and among their audience, so that they can leverage it for brand deals. Did I make it?
With 5 seconds to spare.
Woo! What do I
Round of applause. All right, Kristen, stay with me. How you feel right now?
Well, that was very nerve-wracking. It was, pitches are hard. It's selling yourself is hard.
Yeah. Why would you say it's nerve-wracking and feels hard?
I think because I think there's a lot of like emotional triggers when it comes to selling yourself, and there's a lot of like, am I good enough to sell something? Are people going to reject the thing that I'm selling? And then also public speaking is just hard in general.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rank yours?
My pitch.
Yeah.
Oh boy. I think I cover, what I do, who we are, and how we help. Um, I'd say probably, obviously, there's room for improvement. I'd say I'm like, a 6 or a 7.
Okay.
I think there needs to be refinement, and I need to practice it a lot more, um, and be more confident. So I think there's room for improvement and confidence. But I hope I'm good at, telling people who I am and what we do. And then, obviously my target audience, and then, how we help.
Sure. Are you open to some feedback?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, what I want everyone else to do is in the chat on a scale of 1 to 10, drop your score for Kristen on how you felt her pitch was. And while those scores are coming in, thank you for the vulnerability and the honesty and the openness. I think I would probably put it somewhere in like I'd say around like a 5 to 6. So in the same kind of general range as yours, as what you scored. I heard some good elements in there. I think it needs to be tightened up and cleaned up. And I think the order of the information can change so you get more out of what you want from the person listening. And we'll get into some of that here in a little bit. So we've got a 4 in the chat. We've got a solid 6. You were brave enough to be the first volunteer. 10 for volunteering. You know, it's I can tell. So when I do this presentation, like Midwesterners like can't get past the Midwest nice. And like if I do this for like a Silicon Valley group, they're like 1, mine's better. So we've got like the 5 to 7-ish range here. So everybody keep bringing your questions or your responses in. And also just make sure your chat setting is set to everyone, not just directly messaging me. For like a lot of times that's like an accidental thing that happens where it doesn't default to everyone. But I think Jonathan here has a good point. He said, loads of details makes it hard to recall the punchline. Yeah, I think what we want to do is like streamline how do you say what you're saying. Now, Ruben brings up a good point. 60 seconds seems like too much to me. Here's the thing. Yes, it is too much if, as the person pitching, you make it too much for another person. But if you do this the right way, you'll get someone else hanging on to your every word, and they won't even realize a minute has passed. So I want to table this for a moment and talk to everyone else in the room. In the chat, let me know, why didn't you volunteer yourself? Now, of course, if you're driving, you don't need to reply with like, I'm driving. I don't want you even typing into the chat if that's the case. But we had probably 10 to 12 seconds of silence there before Kristen stepped up and said, I'll go. Why did you not decide to go, everyone else? Megan, thank you for your response. You're shy. Okay. Let's see if we can get a couple more answers in here. Eating mac and cheese. That's on the same plane as driving. Still trying to figure out my product offerings. I knew someone else would step up. Interesting. Okay. So we've got shy. We've got knew someone else would step up. Still trying to figure out my product offerings. I think, and maybe some of you are also thinking like, oh, I don't know. I don't have this thing ready yet, or I don't like to be being put on the spot. That these are pretty common answers. And as we kind of look around the room, you'll kind of see like other people are giving more or less similar answers to you. So I want you to know if you're in that camp right now, you're definitely not alone. And that it really is like probably the standard entrepreneurial like kind of response is, oh, like, not ready, still working on it, shy, don't like being put on the spot or speaking in public, etc. So you're not alone. But I'm also here to tell you it's not okay. And here's why. You don't know where the opportunity lies. So it is to your disadvantage to sit back and let someone else take opportunity for you. To Ken's point, I knew someone else would step up, but why would that stop you from stepping up before then? Right? Especially when there was 10 to 12 seconds there where no one did. It's an opportunity here to showcase what you do to unlock something in someone else and potentially create value. And value can be any number of things. What's not going to happen is a potential customer or investor walks up to you and is like, oh, hey, not right now, Ken, but or let's use someone else here. I use Ken a couple times here. Let's use Megan. Not right now, Megan. But 48 hours from now, I want to meet you on this piece of sidewalk, and then I want to hear what your pitch is. So shake out all the feelings and everything, figure out what you want to say, come back to me, this piece of concrete, same time, same place, 2 days from now, let's meet. And then I want to hear what you have to say, and I'll be totally ready for it. Things like that aren't going to happen. What is going to happen is you will find yourself at a conference, right? Where you're walking the floor, having to talk about what you do, at a networking event, Maybe at a trade show or an industry conference where you have a booth and people are walking up to your table at any given time. You may find yourself in an actual elevator, right? And these are all the instances where you are, quote unquote, being put on the spot. And it will always feel like you're being put on the spot if you don't look at it as opportunity. If you don't think about in advance, how do I want to approach this situation? Because if you think about this in advance, no matter what, anytime someone asks you, regardless of the situation, the scenario, or the setting, you are going to be ready to deliver something for them. And that's the position I want to put you in, because I'm here to tell you, your first 60 seconds determines your next 60 minutes. And you want someone to opt into those next 60 minutes with you, not try and, worm their way out and be like, this is the last thing I want to be stuck talking about, right? And yes, it can modify slightly based on the setting you're in, but that doesn't mean you're coming up with something entirely new every single time. You're taking something you know how to say and co-opting it to the specific situation. So this is ultimately super important stuff. And it's not just me that thinks that this is important. Let me give you the words of a couple other people. This person here on this next slide is, his name is Raj Bhargava. And I joke that he's the Tom Brady or the Michael Jordan of entrepreneurship. And I say that because he has, I think in startup land, the equivalent of winning a championship is exiting or IPOing. And he's done that like 7 times in his life. He's got like 3 IPOs or maybe 4. He's had 2 or 3 exits as well, still running his 8th company. He helped co-found Techstars. He had one of the first 50 or 100 public websites ever, which is wild to think about. And he also co-authored a book called The Startup Playbook, which I highly recommend everyone read. The Startup Playbook. It's available on Amazon. So super accomplished dude. And years back, I asked him on my podcast, hey, what's an area that startups and entrepreneurs need to slow down in so they can ultimately grow faster? And his response to me was, I think messaging is one of the most important things startups can focus on, and it gets glossed over all the time. I think most companies fail at it, and that's probably why a lot of them actually fail overall. So if you don't want to take my word for it, please take his word for it. If you still don't want to take his word for it, take the words of another person who is a VC here in Chicago. Her name is Abhinaya Kondaru. I asked her, what is the most important founder trait? And her response to me was, storytelling is the #1 most important founder trait, because it's not just that it means you can pitch me. Good storytelling is a leading indicator of your ability to get customers and hire the right people, which will ultimately determine your success. So that's why this is so important, right? Good storytelling, leading indicator of your ability to get customers and hire the right people. So if you are out here seeking investment, good storytelling is signaling to an investor you're the right person, because you know how to talk to your customer base and you know how to get the right people on board to become a success. And of course, if raising capital is not a concern of yours at all, that's fine. But good storytelling is how you're going to get customers, right? The product sells itself doesn't really exist, right? There needs to be a message behind that. Now, as we go through everything today, just one thing I want to point out, you'll see most of the content is slanted or angled in the direction of the idea of if the goal is raising capital. But even if that's not your goal, I do want you to take everything we're talking about and apply it to your situation, because this really is unanimous, whether you are pitching to an investor or a customer or a partner or whoever that other person is. So that's why all of this is important. So if you can indulge me for a moment, we're going to do a little call and response. If you all now agree that this is important, your message, your story, your pitch, I would like you to come off of mute, and we're going to do a little play along here. I'm going to say part of a sentence, and you're going to repeat it back to me. So bring yourself off of mute. My product. Go ahead.
It's amazing.
No. You're repeating what I said. You're not filling in the blank.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Call and response. Sorry.
Yes. My product.
My product.
My product.
Doesn't mean shit.
Doesn't mean shit.
Without a compelling story.
Without a compelling story.
Let's do it one more time as a full sentence. 1, 2, 3. My product
product
does not mean shit without a compelling story. Okay, beautiful. Thank you. You can go back on mute now. If we can all agree on that, let's talk about what a bad pitch sounds like. And I hear a lot of bad pitches. Okay, so I have a lot of experience in this. A bad pitch is going to sound like someone saying, "Oh, we're the Airbnb of luxury cars," or "We're the Uber of this," right? I understand why you might want to default there, but I challenge you to do better than needing to rely on the success of another company to be able to describe your own. The other reason why I personally, and you will hear conflicting advice on this, why I am dogmatically against introducing yourself as the this of that is because a lot of times it's a false analogy. Just because you're a marketplace doesn't automatically make you Uber. And not only is it potentially sending the wrong signal, it might lead you to make the wrong assumptions about how your own market is going to behave, just because it happens to be the product like platform idea is the same. And I say that because this actually came up in our Startup Grind Chicago event a couple of days ago with the person I was interviewing. We talked about this exact thing. And what we discussed was let's say you are a marketplace company and there's a provider side or there's a supplier side and a demand side. Uber's reorder rate is automatically built into the product. Every day, I need to get somewhere, whether I'm going to walk there or take the bus there or drive there, right? Or like get a car there. But if your thing is like furniture, I don't need to buy a new couch every day. I probably am buying a couch once a year, maybe twice, right? So just because it happens to be a supply side and a demand side doesn't automatically make you the Uber of or the Airbnb of. And I don't want you to think your market's going to behave the same way just because the product functionality is somewhat similar. And again, it's the wrong signal to your audience then, because it's not the same use case. So I challenge you to get away from saying the this of that. If you introduce yourself in a different way, then later on you're like, the functionality of this is similar to what you've experienced with blank. That I think is fine, but don't lead with this message. I've also heard a ton of things that are like, we're an AI-enabled learning technology platform. Okay, AI is everywhere at this point. It happened real quick, but everyone's got AI now. So it's not really unique or different if you also say AI blank. I think you are far better off talking about the thing and then saying, and it uses AI, versus leading with AI powered, AI driven, AI uplifted, AI enabled, etc. I hear a lot of, we're disrupting the X billion dollar, whatever sector, $150 billion live entertainment sector. Don't tell other people you are disrupting anything. Let them tell you are disruptive. Especially if you are early stage, the only thing you have disrupted is your personal bank account. So leave the word disruption out of it. And when it comes to the market size, this is a mistake I see so many entrepreneurs make. The first thing they tell people is, yeah, we have an X billion dollar TAM or whatever it is. Leave the big TAM energy at home. Everyone's got a big market. Cool. It's not a differentiator, and it's not the most important thing about your product or what you're building or your company, right? It is supporting information, but it's not the lead argument, or it's not the lead case you need to make. Because I promise you, no one is going around saying we are entering the rapidly declining fax machine market. Right? So there's nothing unique about having a large market size. You need to have one if you have a desire to raise capital, you need to have one, but it is not the lead message by any means. It's table stakes. I hear a lot of people open with, you ask them, oh, what's your pitch? They'll go, oh, well, normally what I'd say is, if you have to preface something by saying normally what I'd say is, I promise you never actually say that thing. What you do is you come up with a new thing every time you're going to talk, because now you're trying to riff in the moment. So take that as a signal to yourself that you need to figure out what you actually want to say, and then just say it. This is akin to the cold emails I get where someone opens with, thought I would reach out. You're reaching out. Why are you telling me the act of what it's like you're narrating your own actions in real time. And then I also get, oh, hang on, let me think about this for a moment. I don't want you to be in that scenario either. That means you have no idea what you want to say. I want you to be at the ready at any given time. So all of these are ways that like a bad pitch comes off. And I also want to really drive home the message that, because a lot of people think of this, like, this is not like your elevator pitch in particular is not a throwaway item. Okay. It's not a quick one-liner. I think it's good to have a one-liner, but what your elevator pitch should be is so much deeper than a one-liner, because you can't do these following things with a one-liner that your elevator pitch should accomplish. It should be your 1-minute story and do all of these things. It should generate interest on the spot. It should be the core of your pitch deck, whether that's an investor or a sales deck for customers. It should drive your sales outreach. It should lead your sales calls. When you get on a sales call, discovery call with a customer, particularly if you're B2B, this is how you should introduce your company at the start of the call. It should be the thing that transforms your website or your app copy. Right? You should use this as the backbone of your copy strategy. It should give you a base for your content and marketing. Right? That's how what you say in the 1 minute should affect. And it should also be able to work as a standalone ad, right? That's what the message should give. If you were to like turn it into like a podcast ad, for example, it should be able to work in that format. And it should be able to scale easily across your team. It should not be dependent on your personal story only. And this gets important as you start bringing on new team members. It might be easy for you to say it one way, but if it's only easy for you to say it that way, you need something more effective that everyone on the team can say, so there's a unified message, right? So these are the things that your elevator pitch should accomplish. And on that note, if you're building your pitch just for investors, let's say you want to raise capital, I think that's a wasted effort because you're going to have to do double the work anyways. What I mean by this is, instead of only thinking about how you want to communicate this to an investor, focus on your customer or your user message and then build your investor pitch around that. And that means I want you to think beyond just a pitch deck, right? Think about how you would talk about this to an actual customer or user. Because if you can go to an investor and say, here's how we talk to our customers, and put that message in front of them, they're going to be far more impressed than the fact that you use the word disruptive in the first 5 sentences. So this is the way I want you to start thinking. And ultimately, if you do these things, you're going to avoid what I'm going to say on this next slide. Do not let a bad pitch get in the way of a great product. So let's talk about what we need to do about this. As we unfold here, I want to share everything through the lens of telling you a story of another entrepreneur. His name is Carson, and he was the co-founder of a company called Fan Food. Now, he had he was very much like all of you. And he came up to me. He actually took a super early version of this workshop years ago. And he was like, hey, my pitch really sucks, and I need some help because I think we have the skill, the capability here to build something great. And so he was like, can you help me? And the first thing I did was I put him on camera and I said, all right, well, let's see what you got right now. Here's what he said.
Alrighty, Fan Food is a mobile concession app that allows fans at live events to order concessions from their phone. They can choose to have it delivered to their seat, or they can pick it up through an express line. The value add for the end user, the fan, is that we're going to maximize the user experience. The value add for the venue is that we're going to increase the revenues and the per caps. That's it.
If we were going to give that one a scale of 1 to 10, you can throw your grades in there. I'd give that like a 3. So the way he communicates is not how people communicate. No one walks around saying the value add of this is blank. The value add of that is blank. He was meandering as he was talking, right? He definitely didn't know what he wanted his starting point to be and where he wanted to finish. In fact, by the end, he looked to the side and said, that's it. That's all I got. From a delivery standpoint, I didn't get the sense that he even likes his own company, right? Sounded like it was burdening him more than anything else. So that's what, this was the starting point of Carson. But I was like, okay, we can work with this. We can build this up. So as we explore everything today, I want you to see it through the lens of Carson. And the points we're going to hit are the mindset, the formulas and strategies, and then finally examples. And I'll show you, Fan Food's example ultimately. So let's dive in about how do we right this ship. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. There was a brief introduction in the beginning, but I want to just share with you like why this is important to me. My core belief is that everyone deserves a voice. That's what drives me every single day. And that's what drives all of my pursuits. I have a lot of things sort of under my umbrella, but they all come back to this idea of voice expression and storytelling. So I am a hip hop artist. Specifically, I make rap music about entrepreneurship. If you go to Spotify right now or Apple Music or whatever your music platform is, type in the name RajNATION, all one word. My album that came out last year is called Goat to Market. And I've got a whole go-to-market platform underneath that name. So check it out. We, actually at Startup Grind Chicago a couple of days ago, did a brief live performance. Flying to Dallas next week to perform at a conference called Code Launch. If you want hip hop for startups and entrepreneurs in your life, give RajNATION a call. But this is a form of voice expression and storytelling. Along those lines as well, I teach yoga. I do professional ring announcing and play-by-play broadcasting on TV for MMA. And these are ways of voice and storytelling. And all of this comes together underneath Startup Hypeman, which I've been doing for almost 8 years now, as the title I created is chief pitch artist, but working with entrepreneurs, working with small businesses, working with startups every day to help them figure out what does their message need to be so their audience recognizes them the way they want to be recognized. This commitment has fueled a lot of growth over the years. We've worked with companies in over a dozen countries now, I think. I think it needs to be updated, as well as every continent except Antarctica. But when the polar ice caps eventually melt and the penguins got to jump, we can figure out their pitch too to go live in South Africa. We've been able to fuel a ton of money in capital raises and sales, like using these formulas we're going to show today, and had a lot of success through pitch competitions and supporting clients in those pursuits as well. So with that said, let's talk about what everyone cares about: money. Right? We are all out here trying to get the bag. We're trying to get the dough, trying to make coin. We are trying to grow revenue. We're trying to raise capital. You can also extend the concept of money to mean things like we want to create economic impact with our work. We want to create jobs in the local economy. We want to provide for our family. We want to build generational wealth, right? None of us are out here doing this for free. We want a return in some fashion on this. And so it can be really hard to accomplish this if we're feeling tongue-tied in our message. And maybe earlier when I gave you the opportunity to pitch and you didn't take the opportunity, maybe you were worried it was going to go something like this.
The dog, you put the food in the thing, and then the dog sees it, and food's it's dangling. Dog looks at dang, tail wag, dog wagging the tail, whatever dog's name is. Dog's name is Claire. Claire, come in. Claire sees dog food, pick, Facebook, like.
Sizzle, strategy, sex, something.
This is the worst pitch I have ever seen.
Kristen said, "This is how I feel when I pitch." All right. So maybe you were worried that was going to be you, or you felt like that in the past, but I think a lot of that comes from, lack of preparedness is one element of it, but I think we tend to think we have to say everything all at once. So I want to use that as kind of a springboard into asking you a real quick question here. It's a deep question, but in the interest of time, I want just some quick responses in the chat here. What is the purpose of a pitch? Just a quick 10 seconds, drop some responses here into the chat. What is the purpose of a pitch? Jerry, to get the next meeting. Ruben, create curiosity and interest. Generate interest, get someone interested in hearing more, get them on the hook to learn more, pique someone's interest. But the word interest is the biggest word in our word cloud here. Market your business, market yourself, get someone to ask the next question. Great answers. And I think these all are, they are circling the runway. And I think there's actually something deeper that lands the plane. And this is something that I had an inflection point earlier this year when I came to this. All of these things are what comes from something deeper. And I believe the true purpose of a pitch or the goal or whatever is to make your audience feel seen. Because when they feel seen, they will trust you with their time, their energy, their information, ultimately their money. They will have that interest, right? They will want to take the next meeting, et cetera. When they feel seen, they find a piece of themselves in the story that you're telling. And if they cannot find themselves, your story is not worth telling. So what doesn't make someone feel seen? We have a $150 billion market as the first words out of your mouth, right? Or if you deliver, if you think, I just need to rattle off more statistics or data, or I need to say more about my product, right? I need to say more attributes and features. We kind of think the more detail we give, the more impressive we sound. And I think in reality, we're kind of creating death by information overwhelm for the audience. You want to really get into the emotional core of this and use that as the entry point for them to understand everything else. Make your audience feel seen. Now, I want to clarify something right here. If you're pitching an investor, it's not so much that you want to make the investor feel seen. I would think about it more about show them how you make your customer base feel seen. And obviously, you need to have the points there that an investor would care about. But within that, don't divert everything for what an investor needs to hear. Just think about how does your audience need to hear this? How do you make them feel seen and put that message in front of an investor? Very, very particularly if you're giving that introduction. Yolanda, isn't some of what we share based on the years of the best practice tropes we've been trained to rattle off? Can you follow up with what you mean by that in the chat? I just want to make sure I answer that question properly. I'm going to keep going and I'll come back to what you say as a follow-up to that once I get the next break point. So we understand this stuff is important, right? We know that now we've identified like feeling seen is the purpose here. So what is it that's holding everyone back? Well, it's a concept that I call the messaging treadmill, because we can all say this stuff is important, but it almost feels like we're running in place as we try and figure out. I have trained thousands of entrepreneurs. I've been in front of thousands of entrepreneurs at this point, and there are 3 top reasons that make this really difficult to figure out. Number 1 is being too in the weeds. What does that mean? You're so close to this thing, it's really hard to take a step back and zoom out and think about what does it need to sound like to someone who's not in it every single day, who's not working on it every day. Number 2 is being too technical. Maybe you're like the product person. You built the software, you know that side really well. You know how to speak product, but the kind of the communication side isn't your strong point, and then things get overly complex. And then number 3 is being too caught up in the day-to-day. You've got a million things on your plate. You're an entrepreneur. It's just really hard to sit down and be like, I'm going to build my pitch today. And I know how this goes. Like you might have a to-do list of 10 things and build pitch is number 10 on that list. You'll check off the first 9 things, then think of 9 new things to put in front of it before you get to number 10. It's easy to put off until you're like, oh my God, I'm in a thing tomorrow. Now let me scramble and figure this out. And all of this only gets compounded by the ongoing mental crisis that is entrepreneurship, which means, we have like 50 emotions in a single day, maybe a single hour. And, we wake up feeling great, but we make the mistake of checking email while pouring our coffee. We spit out our coffee because we find out, oh my God, the service has been down for the last, 12 hours and nobody told me. And then you get an email from a customer who's like, actually, we're not going to renew, or actually, we had a great demo with you. We don't want to buy right now. We'll talk again in a few months. Right. And then something good happens, something bad happens. By 3 p.m., inevitably, you're like, I really should have listened to my family and stayed in the high salary job and not done this thing on my own. Then something good happens around 5 p.m. And you're like, I think I can get up and do this again tomorrow. We do this every single day. And it's a 7-day-a-week job. Because if we're not working on it physically, our mind doesn't stop just because it's Sunday. Right? All of this makes it really hard to think of our own company in a positive light. And it just makes it harder to then figure out, how do I talk about this like it's amazing? So what I would love for you to do is put in the chat, which of these 3 reasons, use numbers 1, 2, or 3, or a combination of them, do you feel represents your situation right now? 2 in the weeds, 2 technical, 2 caught in the day-to-day. And if it's something totally different and it's not any of these, please say that as well. So we've got a 3 in there, a 2, all of them, 3, very much caught up, a 3, a 3, a 3, mix of 1 and 2. Okay, great. All right, so it looks like this is resonating. So Yolanda, you gave more context on your response there. You said, we've been told to do this and that. 2.5 years later, we get another set of must-do actions. With that, founders are following the best practices they are told will get them in the rooms, get them to activate the promising convos for a nurturing relationship. Yeah, I think, so if I understand what you're saying here, it's like, how do you reconcile like all of this like conflicting information that's out there? I guess I would just ask you to understand, we are all giving our point of view on how to do this thing. Now, I believe strongly in my point of view, and I believe strongly against what many other experts share. What I think often happens, particularly in like the small business startup world, is you get advice that only helps you in like one very small instance, but doesn't necessarily help you across, several instances. And I'd rather give you the advice that can be applied in multiple use cases than just like this moment on this day. We can riff on that a little bit more later, but hopefully that's at least a starter response that's helpful. I also think a lot of the people who give advice are just so caught up in an echo chamber that like they don't actually think about like what they're saying and if it's going to work or not. So with these reasons here, I'm glad this resonates. Coming back to Carson and fan food, he was very much too in the weeds and too caught up in the day-to-day. So I said, all right, let's slow down and reframe how we're thinking about this. And the first lesson here that I want to share with all of you, which is what we did with Carson, was change the mindset. And that is, from this day forward, I want you to stop thinking like an entrepreneur. Instead, I want you to think like an entertainer. And that is because an entertainer is concerned with one thing. How do I move my audience? How do I make them feel something? Right? If you think of your favorite musician, when you go and see them play, what I promise you they don't do is they'll be like, all right, Grand Rapids, how are we doing tonight? Great. Okay. So tonight we're going to play every song in our entire catalog. We have released 15 studio albums. Each album has between 12 and 18 songs in it. We're going to play all of those. We're also going to play the random little skits that are on the albums as well. After we get through that, we want to give you some working drafts from our garage that aren't quite fine-tuned, and they're not going to sound good to you, but it's really important to us that you know that they exist. And then after we get through that, we want to spend a little bit of time giving you our window into our upcoming 6 to 9 month music roadmap. It's going to take nearly 40 hours to get through this all. Are you with me? I promise you, you are not going to be with them. You're going to be like, what are you doing? Play the hits already. That's what I came to see. And that's what they do, right? They curate a set list based on the emotion they want to leave you with by the end of the night, the emotional journey they want to take you on, and the feeling they want to leave you with when you walk out those doors at the end. That's how I want you to think about crafting your pitch. What is your set list, if you will? And the fact that they have a set list is what allows them to, they take that set list and they take it on tour to a bunch of cities. They don't be like, you know what? Since we're in Detroit tonight, we're going to do this set list, but we're going to Chicago tomorrow and we're going to do something totally different. What they do is they take the set list and be like, you know what? We're going to take this. We're going to go to Chicago tomorrow night. And since it's Chicago, let's add a little thing about the Chicago Bulls when we're there. But it's the same basic set list. Let's just modify it a little bit to give that audience a little something special. Right? They don't rewrite the whole thing every single time. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs do this. They keep rewriting it every single time because they don't have a master set list they've ever figured out. And they think, oh, well, I'm in this pitch competition today, and then I'm in a different pitch competition next week, so I got to redo the whole thing. Then you got like version 1.9, version 18.2 ultimately. I've seen some of these folders from some of our clients of what they have coming in, where it's literally like version 18 point something of their pitch deck. You want to have your master story, if you will, your master pitch, and then you just make a slight adjustment because you know you're in front of a certain audience. Think of your pitch as you are an artist going on tour. So with this said, I want to give you an example of a really, really good elevator pitch. And it's actually an example from entertainment. And it is the greatest elevator pitch of all time. And it is Will Smith and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Now, earlier, I talked about how you didn't know you were entering a live interactive game show. You also didn't know you've entered a live sing-along concert. So we're going to come off of mute, and together we're going to sing the Fresh Prince theme song. So if you will indulge me as a chorus here, come off of mute, and a 1, and a 2, and a 3. Now this is a story all about how my life got flipped, turned upside down. I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there, tell you how I became the prince of a town called Bel Air. In West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playgrounds where I spend most of my days, chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool and all shooting ball outside of school when a couple of guys who were up to no good started making trouble in the neighborhood. I got in one little fight. My mom got scared. She said, "You're moving with your auntie and uncle in Bel Air." All right, pause there. Round of applause, everybody. Thank you. All right, you can go back on mute now. Obviously, it's fun to sing, but what's the purpose of that? That's his elevator pitch for the show. He's telling a story in a minute there. I had this rough upbringing in Philadelphia. Good chance I was going to get involved in the wrong stuff if I stayed. My mom recognized this early on, so she sent me off to Bel Air, California, where I would have the right family system, be able to access the right education, and tap into the right resources. So ultimately, I could grow into the man she knew I was capable of becoming. That's the story being told, and that's what sets up the plot. And that's what allows you to enjoy every single episode. If you don't know the song, but you watch an episode, you spend the entire episode trying to figure out what's going on here. But because the elevator pitch is strong, every episode expands on that introduction. And that's the same thing for you. Your elevator pitch is to give people the understanding of the plot. It is not to give them the entire story. You're trying to get them to not want to, quote unquote, change the channel on you. So if you hit them with everything, what's the need to stay? Or if they're so confused, why, like, they have no reason to want to stay, right? You give them just enough so they say, wait, tell me more about that. So how do we get there? Step 2, formulas. The first thing we need to do is nail your positioning in the market. And to do that, we use a tool that I call the superhero positioning strategy. You have to think of your company as a superhero, because what do superheroes do? They help and they save people. What are you doing? You're helping and you're saving people from something. And I like to use Batman as the example, because if you really take Batman, he was just a person who took technology and combined it with access to capital in order to serve the public good. Sounds like all of us, right? Technology, access to capital, serve the public good. Give yourself a pat on the back for being bat people. So when does Batman come out, right? When there's chaos, when there's crime, when things are being blown up, when the bank is being robbed, when the hospital's been exploded, right? These are the reasons Batman comes in, puts on the cape, and comes in to save the day. If it's like a beautiful day outside, there's nothing wrong, people have their kids at the park, they're taking their dog for a walk, you do not see Batman swoop in and be like, "Oh, I'm here to save you." Because if he did, you know how people would react? They'd be like, stay the hell away from my kids, you creep. Right? They get the exact opposite impression of Batman. But Batman only saves Gotham when Gotham needs saving. And as a result, they say, "Thank you, Batman, for saving me." So if you are going to be Batman, you have to identify your company within the superhero positioning strategy, which says, in order for you to exist, you must first have a person in distress. With a person in distress, you then set a village on fire. With the village on fire, you activate a superpower. And with your superpower activated, the superhero swoops in to save the day. Or in other terms, in business speak, this is your target audience, the core problem or problems they are experiencing, how you approach that, and ultimately your solution. The reason why this is an effective exercise, and with Carson and FanFood, this is where we started. With everyone that we work with, we start here. This is an exercise that's only an internal reference point positioning. It's like you're kind of like wayfaring here. No one else needs to see this except for you and your team, because you are trying to orient yourself in the right direction. And the reason why it's so valuable as a step 1 is because by doing this process in this order, you are forcing yourself to figure out the context and frame of reference for why you even exist. And most importantly, you are putting yourself in your audience's shoes, which creates empathy. Empathy is the key to this whole thing. The more you can be an empath, the better your message will be. And don't worry about how it sounds at this stage. Just get the ideas out of your head. Think of it as an organized brain dump. So when we do this, we have a whole like templated worksheet that we take people through. If you're going to do this on your own, just like take out a printer paper, draw 4 columns, and just start bullet pointing your responses. Do not edit yourself. Just get the ideas out of your head in these 4 columns. What this is going to give you is the raw material to then develop your elevator pitch. So on the next slide, I have for you the elevator pitch formula you've all been waiting for. I want to make sure we're ready for that, though. So if you want to see that, in capital letters in the chat, type in the word pitch. Pitch, 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 pitch. The crowd is chanting for it. They are on their feet, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. It is the most simple and easy to remember, and while being deadly effective all at the same time. And it is the Que Pasa elevator pitch formula. If anyone here knows Spanish, you will know that Que Pasa in Spanish means what's up or what's happening. And that is exactly what you are doing when you use this formula. You're telling people what's up. What's up with them, therefore what's up with you. From that superhero positioning strategy, you extract the information and you have Que Pasa, which stands for problem, approach, solution, action. Problem, approach, solution, action. Problem, approach, solution, action. Problem, approach, solution, action. Once again, the reason why this is so effective is because by starting here, you are providing that context and frame of reference and leading with empathy. You're using their situation as the entry point into explaining your product offering. Most people do it the other way. And what I'm telling you is to do the opposite. So don't lead with your offering, which is what 99% of people do. We are a blank. We do this. Instead of that, lead them to your offering. Fundamental shift, simple but significant. Don't lead with it, lead to it. You will get so much better reception over what you say in that first minute if you follow this way versus the other way. Because you're putting yourself on their side first and using that to generate some familiarity and using the situation they're already aware of to be able to then talk about what you have for them. It's kind of like the difference between, instead of playing tug of war and like trying to yank them over to your side, it's like you start on their side and you just hold their hand and you walk side by side over to your side. Que Pasa, problem, approach, solution, action. Now, I want to give you a few examples of Que Pasa in action. Sound good? Okay. Part 3, examples. So first, let me introduce you to Christine, the founder of a company called Cyber Pop-Up. She was also in this workshop a few years back, and she said, hey, we need to balance the seriousness and private nature of cybersecurity, which is their industry, with the flexibility and simplicity of our platform to people to understand the value, how we're different, and why they should trust us. Christine was, she at this point in time, the product was her. So it was totally service-based. She was brokering everything on the back end, and she wanted to be able to refine her messaging so she could go out and start raising capital to be able to build the actual platform for the thing. So here's what the elevator pitch was underneath Que Pasa. Your server was hacked. You failed an audit. Your latest software update is vulnerable. Cybersecurity is serious business. It's also highly specialized. So why would you find an expert from the same place your marketing team gets their freelance graphic designers? Yeah. Meanwhile, traditional consulting firms take you through a sales process that lasts months, but you needed someone for the job like yesterday. Get vetted specialists in a fraction of the time at a time when you need it most with Cyber Pop-Up. Submit your project and get started as early as the same day. We manage the team and verify all of your requirements are met, so you get the highest quality delivery without the headaches. Cybersecurity isn't a matter of if, but when. So when it hits the fan, go to cyberpopup.com. Capital letter C in the chat, if you have a baseline understanding of the plot of this company, if you understand how they might be valuable to their audience of mid-size and up business owners with cybersecurity issues. Good. Good. We're throwing up the C's here. Fantastic. And like I mentioned, this is not only the introduction, this lays the foundation for the deck, for the messaging, for all of these different things. And this was what Christine experienced over the course of a year. I got an email where she said, sidebar, I won $20,000 last night. Wouldn't it be great to send an email to someone and it's the sidebar in that email is I won 20K. Shortly after that, 5K competition win. After that, $100,000 win. The following weekend, another $100,000 win. She ended up getting media attention because of this. Over the course of a year, she won, I believe, about $250,000 in different pitch competitions. All but like 5K or 8K of it was equity free as well. And then this springboarded her into raising a seven-figures fundraising round as well. And all of this starts with KPASA, right? You get that right, and everything else just unfolds a little bit easier, and it becomes so strong of material. This is why I'm like, Yolanda, coming back to your thing about like other advice, I'm like, you think with a one-liner, you can accomplish all of that? You think with saying we're the Airbnb of luxury cars, you get away with that? Or you can pull off that, right? It's incomplete to say that's all you need to do. Because all that's thinking about is like, how are you going to get one person's attention one time, maybe never talk to them again? I want you to know how you're charting your entire company trajectory because of your messaging. Let's go to another company, Wendy. We literally just worked with her in the last couple months. Company called Expert Atlas. Now she was thinking about how do I get attention from customers, right? Sales is her big focus, and so we apply KPASA here. Now her audience is ed tech founders who sell into higher education. So here's what it becomes. Building an ed tech solution, that's easy. Getting the right stakeholders to even look at it, impossible. They ignore cold emails, don't open drip campaigns, and no-show webinars. Conferences cost a ton of money, only to spend 3 days talking to other ed techs trying to find out where the actual buyers are. In the end, we're publishing a 27-page white paper, crossing our fingers for a legitimate lead. Be seen as the expert with Expert Atlas. We bring vetted buyers, leaders, and influencers to the table for virtual demo days so your product gets in front of the people who matter most. As a trusted third-party event, we recruit the stakeholders who want to listen, learn, and can opt in for follow-up discussions. When you showcase your expertise in a neutral forum, you sell with your buyers, not to them. Be seen at expertatlas.com. Capital E in the chat if you think how ed tech founders might make use of Expert Atlas. Good. Awesome. And I'll tell you, Expert Atlas was one of, I think, ed tech founders was one of 4 total target markets they have. And so we built a KPASA for each use case, and then an umbrella KPASA that kind of summarizes all of it in one. And so literally, look at what Ruben just did. He said, I'm sending this to an ed tech founder now. Do you think if I had just said, Expert Atlas does virtual demo days for ed tech startups, do you think Ruben would be like, hey, I need someone to see this right now? It's because the message is there because we unite it under what the actual pain point is. Yolanda, I'm sending this to my L&D group. Look at that. On the spot, this is happening. And this is what happened for Wendy as well. I was with an ed tech founder who was literally lamenting over the conference they had just been to that they spent a bunch of money at. And I go, hang on one second. Let me know if this resonates with you. And verbatim, I gave her that pitch. And her response was 1,000% I'm in. She goes, if they can deliver, she goes, that's exactly what I experienced. If they can deliver on that, 1,000% I'm in. And then she was like, what does it cost? And I told her, and she was like, oh my God, I pay 3 times that for a booth at a conference. This is so much better. This is what I want your audience to do for you. Now, in the interest of time, I'm going to skip this example, but another really good example, I believe in the director's cut, if you opt into getting that resource, I think we've got their example in there. But ultimately, they ended up winning $50K with the Chicago Bulls as a result of this, and then raising $2 million. So let's come back to Carson and fan food, okay? We saw what his pitch was at the beginning. Now let's look at it after we've applied the KPASA model. Here's what it sounds like now. We're going to start with the problem.
Hey there, my name is Carson Goodell, CEO and co-founder of Fan Food. Now, as a diehard sports fan, there's nothing more frustrating when you're at your team's game than missing a big play because you were stuck waiting in a line for a hot dog and beer. Fan Food keeps you in the moment. Our mobile ordering app brings concessions directly to your seat, so you never have to miss the big play. Now, we are currently live in 5 venues in 3 different states, our 2 largest being a Major League Soccer venue and the Formula One Raceway down in Austin, Texas. Download our app today on the iOS and Android store.
Confidence, swagger, interest, right? He likes his company. The only downside to this was I'm not a great videographer and I was walking too fast with the camera. So he had to like adjust his pace and kind of ran out of breath because I was walking too fast. But you can see how much better the message connects there, right? And how you get into the emotional aspect first before anything else. So just real quick to show you what that looks like written out. Here's the pitch. And what did this lead to for Fan Food? Well, they had a pretty cool run. They right out of the gate, like literally like within like 4 days, they won a pitch competition. They then won $25,000, which also came with getting a consulting session from Damon from Shark Tank. They did a successful crowdfund. They raised about $3 million and were able to scale the platform up to customers in pretty much every major type of live event or sports league. Carson himself will tell you how much good storytelling helped his journey as an entrepreneur. One of the most underrated skills as an entrepreneur is authentic storytelling. Developing the skill without a doubt has made me a stronger entrepreneur. So let's come back to what we showed at the beginning. Your elevator pitch is not a throwaway item and it's deeper than a one-liner. It's your 1-minute story and it should do all of these things. What I want you to take a moment and reflect on is the 3 examples that I showed you. Did it generate interest on the spot? Or could you see how it would for the intended target market? Can you see how it becomes the core of a pitch deck? Can you see how they can use that language to drive their sales outreach and their sales calls? Can you see how you could take that language and make it the copy of the homepage of the website? Can you see how they can take that story and build content marketing strategy around it? Can you see how you could take that 1 minute and make it an ad, either a video explainer video or an audio podcast ad of some kind? Can you see how everyone on the team, as they hire people, can use that same message? Because it's not dependent on one person's story. And I'm not saying your founder story is not important, but I want you to have something that goes beyond your personal story. That is what this should accomplish for you. And that's what KPASA does. So to close out, I want to give you a couple of things here. If you want $1,000 off, we've got a full process we take people through. You can find it at startuphypeman.com/fundraising. Even if you're not raising, this is a fantastic process to go through. We call it our GTM, our go-to-market pitch kit, to get yourself straightened out messaging wise and build a really strong messaging foundation that you actually can use, not just something that like you create and it gives you ideas later on, maybe sometime in the future. So this is the full process here. If you are interested in that, just head to, if you want $1,000 off of our kit, you just have to schedule a meeting within the next 2 weeks to hit our first qualifier mark. The meeting doesn't have to happen in the next 2 weeks. You just have to get on the calendar at some point, like schedule your meeting at some point in the next 14 days. And so how do you do that? Well, the QR code in the top right of the screen will take you straight to my calendar page if you're interested today. Otherwise, if you go to the website or go to this url.com/fundraising and click the book meeting button, you can also access it from there. Or you can also reach out to my email, which is in the bottom left. A couple final things. Everything we've talked about today is not only in the message of, not only in the name of being clear and compelling in how you communicate, but it's also making a fundamental shift towards not being so concerned about competing with everyone else who's out there. Okay. It is being able to stand on your own 2 feet and shift the perception of your audience so that they don't see you as the best, and instead they see you as the only. And that's where I want all of you to reside in. Don't fight to be the best. Be powerful and be the only. I'll take any final questions you have now. We can hang out for another couple minutes. And also we have an online founder community, which is in the bottom right here, called the Goat to Market Club. Head to that URL and you can join. It's free. We've got some resources in there. We do a weekly event on Tuesdays at noon Eastern time called Traction Hour, which is literally like, it's adult study hall. You come in and you just decide you're going to block off all distractions and get work done. And since there's other people on Zoom doing that as well, there's some accountability built in. And then there's also other, we have some like members only workshops that are in there too, and some perks from our partners. So that's how you join that. If you want a copy of the director's cut recording, you're going to go to this URL. I'm going to drop it in the chat right now. Oops. And you're just going to fill out this form, which will give you a copy of the director's cut recording and kind of like the master slides. Please excuse me that the master slides are in like the old slide template I had. So don't come at me for the design being a little bit different. But there actually are additional elevator pitch examples in those master slides as well. And again, if you want to work with us on this, literally this is what I've developed expertise in. My team has developed expertise in, and we do this every day. And I love creating those moments of like, oh my God, that's what we do. And that's how we're going to start saying what we do. Any questions?
I have a question. So I think one of the things that I struggle with in creating my pitch is that, the primary goal of my company is full service research, working with creators, creator focused brands. But my startup idea is this creator impact score that helps creators really understand their true influence, going beyond the vanity metrics like engagement and likes and so on. So would you recommend that when I'm doing pitches that, I focus on one or the other, or is there a way to take that and kind of mold them together?
Okay, really good question. So let me make sure I understand this. You have the service side of your business, which is helping creators with what again?
Research. So we help them understand what their audiences want through asking their audiences, and then we take that data and summarize it and give them content strategy and how they feel about the brand.
So market research on behalf of creators, and then what you're building is like a technology that gives them a score, essentially, right?
Yes, an influence score.
Okay, great. What I think, so you may not like love my answer because I'm going to kind of put it back on you. But my response to that is, if your intended goal is to get more customers right now to purchase your service, focus on that.
Okay.
If your goal is if the product is ready, for example, which based on that risk not, then you would focus there. But I think you'd probably be better served getting as many people as you can into the service, so you have essentially a wait list that you convert into the product.
Okay. So the product is ready in that I'm able to get them their influence score. My goal is to become an app or a widget or a platform that they can then the score is automated. So it's very manual on my part. Right now.
So if that's the case, I would work the fact that you can calculate the influence score as part of that upfront introduction. Okay. But I think at large, what you're still kind of offering to them is the ability to like essentially understand their audience. right? So
Yeah.
I think that's where you're going to focus right now. And not only are you going to find the data, but you're going to be able to give them an actual score. When you're ready to commercialize the widget, then you convert it to like, you kind of take some of the same messaging, but you convert it to the fact that now you've got, now they can like log in essentially and see their score. Yeah. And I'll tell you with that, the problem might change, because maybe the problem right now is understanding their audience. But maybe the problem becomes, because you have this widget, maybe the problem actually then at that point is, and in a way, you'll almost be like sandbagging what you were previously doing. You'd be like, everyone can tell you who your audience is, but no one can tell you what to do about it. Mm-hmm. And now we can, we have this for you.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Raj, I have a question.
Yeah.
This was years ago. I had someone that had come in and talked to us about elevator pitch and all that. And I remembered one thing that I left with, where they said like a really good pitch would almost be done in stages. Like, what do you do? And it's just like this quick, for me, like I run a venture fund. I'm not going to say I run a venture fund. Then they're probably turned them off pretty quick, right? Unless it's a founder, then they want to talk to me.
Sure.
But if I say I run a venture fund and I'm in fundraising mode, nobody wants to talk to me. But if I said I help successful entrepreneurs invest in the next generation of entrepreneurs, that leaves them going, whoa, how do you do that? So my question to you is, do you ever coach people on doing pitches that create questions and it kind of leaves someone wanting more? And that's all you do. You have one little line at a time and you save the next one until they ask. If they don't ask, you kind of move on to the next person, right?
In our process, we don't do it like that. I will say, from doing the KPASA formula approach, or doing the KPASA process rather, it becomes pretty easy to figure out what you would want that like one line to be that leads into the larger KPASA. But I'll also say this, like, you could either do it that way and be like, so we help entrepreneurs figure out how to invest in the next generation of entrepreneurs. They go, oh, really? Yeah. So basically, here's what that means. Then you do problem, approach, solution, action. Or you say, yeah, so basically here's what it's like right now for entrepreneurs, and then problem, approach, solution, action. Because I'm telling you, so in this format, it's not just the formula, but if you get the words right within the formula, they're essentially asking the question in their head and you're just like saying it, right? So they're hanging on to every word. And what I really like about the KPASA formula is it's kind of like a little bit of like a Jedi mind trick, in that if you really nail articulating the problem, by the time you finish saying the problem, they're already starting to think about what your product or your offering is. And so then when you actually do say what it is, it's a reinforcement of a thought they started to have a half second earlier.
Right.
And so now it's going to be received a little bit more favorably, because it's actually their thought that you just reinforced in their head versus, otherwise like entirely brand new information that they have to calculate.
So when I get into the KPASA part, the problem would be that most successful entrepreneurs find traditional investments to be boring and they have no control over what they're investing in, where we help them invest in entrepreneurs like themselves who are bringing innovation to market, that kind of thing.
Yeah, possibly. I have to think a little bit more about like your market and your offering, but yeah, that maybe it's that.
I might shoot it over to you and see if it fits the KPASA.
Yeah, people make this mistake often. They start talking about their solution while they're still trying to highlight the problem.
Yeah.
Let the problem be the problem on its own.
Right. That's good. That's good. Thank you.
All right. Let's see here. What else? All right. Well, we're 15 minutes overtime, so I think that's a good place to call it. Again, if you wanted to get the bonus resources, you're going to fill out the form on the link here that I put in the chat. And then we will add this live recording to the Startup Hypeman YouTube channel in like the next few days to a week. So just subscribe to youtube.com/ I think you have to do the @ in a YouTube URL @Startup Hypeman, and you'll see this get uploaded there in the next week or so. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Great to see everyone.